Dr. Sarah Morrison walked slowly through Gallery 7 of the Galactic Academy. Her shoes made soft sounds on the crystal floor. She had prepared for this exhibition for 3 months. As Earth's first cultural liaison, she wanted to make her planet proud. The gallery held artifacts from civilizations that had disappeared long ago. Sarah stopped at each display, reading the information carefully. She saw ancient tools, beautiful jewelry, and mysterious devices that no one understood anymore. Then she saw the blade. It was a ceremonial weapon, preserved behind a shimmering energy field. The metal seemed to change color from silver to gold as she moved. The craftsmanship was extraordinary. But that was not what made Sarah freeze in place. On the handle, clearly visible even through the preservation field, was a symbol she knew very well. 3 interlocked rings with a star pattern in the center. A distinctive geometric border surrounded it. It was her family crest, the Morrison family crest. Sarah's hand automatically went to her neck. Under her formal shirt hung a small silver pendant. Her grandmother had given it to her on her 18th birthday. The same symbol was engraved on it. She stared at the blade, trying to understand. This could not be a coincidence. The symbols were identical in every detail. Every ring, every point of the star, every line of the border matched perfectly. Sarah leaned closer to read the information placard. Her hands began to shake slightly as she read the words. Ceremonial blade, Vraxian Empire, approximately 47,000 years old. Purpose unknown. Symbol believed to be royal or noble family marking. 47,000 years old. That was impossible. Her family history went back to medieval Scotland, perhaps 1,000 years at most. The family stories said the crest came from an ancient warrior who founded their clan. Just old legends, nothing more. But there it was. Her family symbol on an alien artifact that was 47,000 years old. Dr. Morrison, is everything all right? Sarah turned to see Ambassador Kixtel approaching. He was a Vraxi, a being whose body looked like it was made of living crystal. His colors shifted and changed with his emotions. Right now, he showed the soft blue that meant friendly concern. This blade, Sarah said, pointing at the display. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears. The symbol on the handle, why does it look exactly like my family crest? She pulled out her pendant to show him. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Ambassador Kixtel's crystalline body went completely still. His colors faded to a neutral gray. Around them, other visitors stopped their conversations. Sarah felt many eyes turning to look at her. Your family crest? Kixtel asked slowly. Each word was careful and deliberate. This symbol belongs to your family? Yes, Sarah said. It has been in the Morrison family for hundreds of years. My grandmother told me it came from Scotland, from our clan's ancient traditions. But that symbol there is identical to ours. How is that possible? Kixtel's colors shifted to something Sarah had never seen before. Deep purple mixed with silver threads. She did not know what emotion it represented, but it made her nervous. Dr. Morrison, he said quietly, I think you should speak with the council immediately. I just want to understand why. Please, Kixtel interrupted gently. He was already guiding her away from the gallery. This is very important. The council needs to hear your question. Sarah let herself be led through the academy's corridors. Other delegates moved aside as they passed. Some of them made gestures that Sarah had learned meant deep respect. One Korthan warrior actually bowed slightly as she walked by. Why were they acting like this? What was happening? 20 minutes later, Sarah stood in a private chamber she had never seen before. She knew this room was only used for emergency situations. The speed with which everything was happening told her this was serious. Council Administrator Theln sat across from her. She was a Drexian with 4 arms and 4 eyes. All of those eyes were now focused on Sarah with great intensity. "Dr. Morrison," Thelen began, her voice kind but serious, "please tell us about your family history." Sarah took a deep breath. "The Morrison family comes from Scotland. Our records go back to around the year 1200. Before that, we have oral traditions about a great warrior who founded our line. The crest supposedly comes from him, but those are just family stories. Every Scottish clan has similar legends." "And before Scotland?" Thelen asked. "Are there any stories about where your ancestors came from before that?" Sarah thought about her grandmother's stories. The old woman loved to tell tales on winter evenings. "My grandmother used to tell stories about ancestors who came from across the sea of stars," Sarah said slowly. "But I always thought that was poetic language. You know, metaphors for ancient migrations from Europe or Asia. The Sea of Stars just meant a long journey." She paused. In this room, surrounded by beings from other worlds, those words suddenly had a different meaning. "Oh," she whispered. Thelen nodded slowly. 3 months ago, Dr. Morrison, an ancient archive on Mars identified humanity as a precursor species. The precursors built the foundations of galactic civilization 3 million years ago. Then they vanished. We thought they were all gone." Sarah felt dizzy. She sat down in a chair that someone quickly provided. "That cannot be right," she said. "Humans evolved on Earth. We have fossils. We have DNA evidence. Scientists know exactly how we evolved." "Yes," Thelen agreed. "Humanity did evolve on Earth, but the archive recognized precursor genetic markers in humans. We have been trying to understand why. We thought perhaps the original precursors planted their DNA on Earth before they disappeared." Ambassador Kixtel spoke up. "But now, Dr. Morrison, we think something else might be true. Some human families might not just carry precursor DNA. Some might be direct descendants, unbroken bloodlines that go back to the original precursors themselves." Sarah looked at her pendant. Her hand was shaking. "You think my family is that old? That we are actual precursors?" "Your family symbol appears on this Vraxian blade from 47,000 years ago," Thelen said gently. "But Dr. Morrison, that is not all." Thelen activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air around them. Sarah saw artifacts, buildings, even spacecraft. All of them bore her family crest. Some versions were more elaborate. Some were simpler, but the basic design was always the same. "Your family symbol appears across the galaxy," Thelen explained, "on worlds that are thousands of light years apart, on artifacts that span hundreds of thousands of years. It was a precursor symbol originally, the mark of one of their great noble houses." Sarah stared at the images floating around her. Her mind struggled to accept what she was seeing. "How could this be?" she asked. "How could a symbol survive that long? How could my family keep it for so many years without knowing what it really meant?" "Perhaps," suggested Kixtel, "some members of your family always knew the truth." Before Sarah could respond to Kixtel's words, the chamber door opened. An elderly human man entered. He looked to be about 80 years old, with silver hair and a dignified bearing. He moved with unusual grace for someone his age. "Ah, Dr. Morrison," Council Administrator Thelen said, standing respectfully. "This is Lord Edmund Ashford. He represents Earth on our Historical Preservation Committee." The man smiled at Sarah. There was something unusual about his eyes. They looked old, much older than his face suggested. "Actually," Lord Ashford said, "today I am here for a different reason. Dr. Morrison, your grandmother sent me. She asked me to find you if you ever discovered the blade." Sarah's breath caught. "My grandmother? She knows about all of this?" Lord Ashford nodded. "Margaret Morrison is 103 years old, but that is not actually very old. Not for someone of her bloodline." He reached into his coat and pulled out a small data device. He handed it to Sarah. This contains your family's real history, he said gently. Not the stories you were told as a child. The actual truth. Sarah took the device with trembling hands. What do you mean my grandmother is not very old? She is 103. Lord Ashford's ancient eyes showed kindness. Ask her yourself when you see her. But I will tell you this much. Your grandmother remembers when that blade in Gallery 7 was made. She was present at the ceremony. The room seemed to spin around Sarah. She gripped the arms of her chair tightly. 47,000 years, she whispered. That is impossible. No human can live that long. Most humans cannot, Lord Ashford agreed. But Dr. Morrison, your family is not like most humans. You are one of the old lines. You carry pure precursor genetics. Your ancestors chose to remain on Earth when the others left. They decided to guide humanity's development quietly. They waited for the day when the rest of humanity would be ready to learn the truth. Sarah activated the data device with shaking hands. A video file appeared. Her grandmother's face filled the small screen. She looked exactly as Sarah remembered. Weathered skin, kind smile, sharp green eyes. Hello, dear, the recording said. Her grandmother's familiar voice made tears spring to Sarah's eyes. If you are watching this, you have found the blade, the one I commissioned all those years ago. I suppose it is time I told you the real story of our family. Sarah pressed pause. She needed a moment, just one moment to prepare herself. Ambassador Kix-Tell spoke softly. Dr. Morrison, we understand this is overwhelming. Would you like privacy to watch the recording? Sarah shook her head. No, I think I need witnesses. I need to know this is real and not some strange dream. She pressed play again. That blade was a gift, her grandmother continued in the recording. I made it for my sister Catherine when she married into the Vraxian royal family. That was 47,000 years ago. We were still young then. Well, young for our kind. I was only 5,000 years old. Sarah made a small sound. Her grandmother had just casually mentioned being 5,000 years old 47,000 years ago. That meant she was now 52,000 years old. I know this seems impossible, her grandmother said, as if reading Sarah's thoughts. But our family has always been different. We are precursors, Sarah. The original builders of galactic civilization. When the rest of our people decided to move on to other dimensions, to explore beyond this reality, some of us chose to stay. We wanted to see what would happen to the younger species we had helped create. The recording showed her grandmother looking thoughtful. Humanity was our special project. We planted precursor DNA in the developing species on Earth. We wanted to see if intelligence could evolve naturally when given the right starting conditions. And it worked beautifully. Humans evolved, grew, developed their own cultures and civilizations. Some of us decided to hide among the humans, to guide them gently without interfering too much. We took on human forms, aged slowly to match those around us, then pretended to die and started over with new identities. The Morrison family has maintained our bloodline pure. We married only within the old lines, keeping the full precursor genetics intact. Sarah paused the recording again. She looked up at the council members watching her. How many? She asked. How many of these old line families are there on Earth? Thelen consulted a data pad. We believe approximately 40 families worldwide maintain pure precursor genetics. Perhaps 200 more families have partial genetics, though they may not know their heritage. So I am not human? Sarah asked, her voice small. You are human, Lord Ashford said firmly. Humanity carries precursor DNA. All humans do, thanks to the original seeding. But you also carry the undiluted version. You are both human and precursor. There is no contradiction. Sarah resumed the recording. Her grandmother smiled warmly. I imagine you have many questions, dear. I will answer them all when we meet. But for now, know this. You are special, not better than other humans. but different. You will live much longer than they do. You will heal faster. You will process information more quickly. These are gifts of your heritage. But with these gifts comes responsibility, her grandmother continued, her expression becoming serious. The Galactic Council operates under precursor protocols. These are ancient laws that govern how the galaxy functions. Now that humanity has been recognized as a precursor species, those protocols apply to all humans, but especially to families like ours. What does that mean? Sarah asked the screen, though she knew the recording could not answer. Her grandmother seemed to anticipate the question. The protocols grant precursor species certain rights: access to all archive sites, immediate council membership, legal claim to precursor territories and technologies. Sarah, this means humanity suddenly has authority over much of the galaxy. The other species have been building on precursor foundations for millions of years. Now they must answer to us. The recording paused as her grandmother took a sip of tea. Sarah recognized the cup. It was the blue ceramic one her grandmother always used. The council is worried, her grandmother said. They fear humanity will abuse this power. They worry about what young humans might do with ancient technologies. This is where families like ours become important. We must serve as bridges. We understand both the human and precursor perspectives. We can help guide humanity through this transition. Lord Ashford will help you understand your new role. You are no longer just Earth's cultural liaison, Sarah. You are now a representative of a precursor bloodline. The Council will listen to you differently. They will show you respect that might seem excessive. Accept it gracefully. Use your new influence wisely. The recording showed her grandmother leaning closer to the camera. Come home soon, dear. We have so much to discuss, and I have 52,000 years of stories to share with you. I think it is time you knew the real history of our family. The video ended. Sarah sat in silence for a long moment. Then she looked up at Lord Ashford. How old are you? She asked directly. He smiled. 68,000 years, give or take a century. I sometimes lose track. Sarah laughed. It came out slightly hysterical, but it felt good. This is insane. Yesterday I was just a researcher trying to help Earth make a good impression. Today I find out I am some kind of ancient being who might live for thousands of years. You are still you, Thelen said kindly. This information changes nothing about who you are as a person. It simply explains some things you may have wondered about. Have you ever noticed you heal faster than your friends? That you rarely get sick? That you understand complex concepts more quickly than others? Sarah thought about it. Yes, she had noticed those things. She had always attributed them to good genetics and good luck. What happens now? She asked. Kixtel's colors shifted to warm gold, which Sarah had learned meant optimism. Now, Dr. Morrison, we help you understand your heritage. We teach you about the precursor protocols, and we work together to guide humanity into its new role in galactic civilization. And your grandmother, Lord Ashford added with a smile, is waiting for you at her cottage. She made scones. She said you would need comfort food after learning the truth. Despite everything, Sarah smiled. That sounded exactly like her grandmother, 52,000 years old, and she still believed tea and scones could solve any problem. Maybe she was right. Sarah's shuttle descended toward the Scottish Highlands. Below her, green hills rolled toward the horizon. She could see her grandmother's cottage sitting beside a small lake, just as it had for as long as Sarah could remember. Smoke rose from the chimney in a welcoming spiral. Everything looked so normal, so peaceful, so ordinary. Sarah knew now that nothing about this place was ordinary. Lord Ashford sat across from her in the shuttle. He had insisted on accompanying her home. Your grandmother will want to see me, he had said. We have not spoken face-to-face in nearly 2 centuries. 2 centuries. Sarah was still struggling to think in such vast time scales. The shuttle landed gently in the meadow behind the cottage. As Sarah stepped out, she saw her grandmother waiting at the back door. Margaret Morrison looked exactly as she always had, small, sturdy, with silver hair pulled back in a bun. She wore her favorite green cardigan and a flowered apron. She could have been any grandmother in any village, except she was 52,000 years old. "Sarah, love," her grandmother called, walking toward her with open arms. "Come give your old gran a hug." Sarah ran to her. She hugged her grandmother tightly, breathing in the familiar scent of lavender and baking. For a moment, she could pretend everything was normal. "Hello, Maggie," Lord Ashford said, approaching with a warm smile. "Edmund," her grandmother exclaimed. "Goodness, you are looking well. Come in, come in. I have tea ready and the scones are still warm." Inside the cottage, everything was familiar and comforting. The same worn furniture, the same pictures on the walls, the same blue ceramic teapot that Sarah had seen in the video recording. Her grandmother poured tea with steady hands. She placed a plate of scones on the table, along with butter and jam. "Now then," she said, settling into her chair, "I imagine you have questions." Sarah laughed, though it sounded a bit wild. "Questions? Gran, I have about 1,000 questions, maybe 1,000,000. Her grandmother smiled gently. "Start with the most important one." Sarah took a deep breath. "Are you really 52,000 years old?" 51,743 years, her grandmother corrected. "Give or take a few months. I celebrated my last birthday in March." Sarah felt dizzy again. How? How is that possible? "Precursor genetics," her grandmother explained. "Our bodies renew themselves constantly. We age very slowly. I look like an old human woman because I choose to. If I wanted, I could appear younger. But people ask fewer questions when you look the age you claim to be?" "Do I—" Sarah hesitated. "Will I live that long?" Her grandmother reached across the table and took Sarah's hand. "Yes, dear. You will live for many thousands of years. Perhaps tens of thousands. We do not know the actual limit. None of us have reached it yet." Lord Ashford spread butter on a scone. "The oldest living precursor is Lady Chen in Beijing. She is approximately 94,000 years old, still quite active, I might add. She runs a very successful tea company." Sarah stared at him. 94,000 years. That is, I cannot even imagine it." "You will learn," her grandmother said calmly. "You will have time, plenty of time." Sarah took a sip of tea. The familiar taste helped ground her. "Tell me the real story, Gran. From the beginning." Her grandmother settled back in her chair, her green eyes growing distant with memory. "The precursors were an ancient civilization," she began. "We explored the galaxy when it was young. We built vast cities on 1,000 worlds. We created technologies that seemed like magic. We were powerful and wise and perhaps a bit proud. What happened to them?" "To us?" Sarah asked. "We grew restless," her grandmother said softly. "After millions of years, we began to wonder what lay beyond our dimension. Some of our scientists discovered ways to pierce the barriers between realities. They found other dimensions, other universes entirely. Places where the laws of physics were different, where time moved strangely, where consciousness could exist without physical form." "Most precursors decided to leave," Lord Ashford added. "They wanted to explore these new frontiers. It was the greatest adventure imaginable." "But some of us stayed," her grandmother continued. "We looked at the younger species we had encountered, species that were just beginning to develop intelligence. We wondered what would happen if we helped them, if we gave them a gentle push in the right direction." "So you stayed to play God?" Sarah asked, an edge in her voice. Her grandmother shook her head firmly. "No, dear. We stayed to be gardeners. We planted seeds. We watered them occasionally, but we let them grow naturally. We never forced anything." "Humanity was one of your projects," Sarah said. Yes, her grandmother admitted. We found Earth 3 million years ago. The local primates showed promise. We introduced some genetic modifications. Nothing drastic, just small changes that would encourage the development of larger brains, better hands for tool use, vocal cords capable of complex speech. Then we left and watched from a distance, Lord Ashford said. We wanted to see what would happen without constant interference. And humanity evolved, Sarah said slowly, understanding. We developed naturally from the modified primates. Exactly, her grandmother said with pride. You built civilizations entirely on your own. You discovered fire, agriculture, writing, mathematics, science, all without help from us. We watched and marveled at your creativity. But some of us wanted a closer look, her grandmother continued. About 50,000 years ago, a group of us decided to live among humans. We took human form. We joined human tribes and communities. We experienced life as humans lived it. Why? Sarah asked. Her grandmother smiled. Because it was beautiful. Humans, with their short lives, valued every moment in ways we had forgotten. They created art and music and stories. They loved fiercely. They fought for their families and communities. They faced death with courage, knowing their time was limited. We learned from you, Lord Ashford said quietly. We remembered what it meant to truly live instead of just existing. Some of us started families, her grandmother said. We married humans. We had children who carried both human and pure precursor genetics. Those children aged normally as humans, but they had longer lives than ordinary humans, maybe 200 or 300 years instead of 80 or 90. But some of us, her grandmother continued, we married only within our own kind, the old line families. We kept the pure precursor genetics intact. Our children, like you, would have the full precursor lifespan. Sarah absorbed this slowly. So I am fully precursor, genetically? Yes, her grandmother confirmed. But you are also fully human. You were born here. You grew up with human culture and human values. You are both, Sarah. That is what makes you special. The council is frightened, Lord Ashford said bluntly. Humanity now has legal authority over much of the galaxy under the precursor protocols. They worry about what humans might do with that power. That is where families like ours become crucial, her grandmother said. We understand both perspectives. We can help humanity adjust to its new role. We can reassure the council that humans will not abuse their newfound authority. Sarah looked at her grandmother, really looked at her. This woman who had baked her cookies and taught her to knit and told her bedtime stories. This woman who had lived for 52,000 years. Who had seen civilizations rise and fall. Who had walked on alien worlds before humanity even existed. Why did you never tell me? Sarah asked. Her grandmother's expression grew sad. Because you were not ready, dear. Children need to be children. Teenagers need to focus on growing up. Young adults need to build their lives. I waited for the right moment. When you took the position with the Galactic Academy, I knew that moment was coming. You arranged for me to find the blade, Sarah realized. Her grandmother smiled. I suggested to certain people that Gallery 7 might be interesting for Earth's new cultural liaison to visit. I knew you would see it eventually. I knew you would ask questions. You could have just told me, Sarah said. Would you have believed me? Her grandmother asked gently. Would you have accepted it without proof? Sarah thought about it. Probably not. Exactly, her grandmother said. You needed to discover it yourself. You needed the council to confirm it. Now you believe because you have seen the evidence with your own eyes. Sarah ate a scone without really tasting it. Her mind was spinning with implications. What do I do now? She asked finally. Her grandmother squeezed her hand. You continue your work at the academy. You help humanity understand its new place in the galaxy. You serve as a bridge between humans and the other species, and you learn about your heritage, about the responsibilities and privileges that come with being part of an old line family. I will help you, Lord Ashford promised. There are protocols to learn, history to study, skills to develop. You have time, Sarah. Thousands of years to grow into your role. Sarah looked around the familiar cottage. Everything had changed, and yet somehow everything was still the same. "Can I still come home for tea and scones?" she asked her grandmother. Margaret Morrison laughed, the sound warm and comforting. "Always, dear, always. No matter how old you get or what you accomplish, you will always be welcome here for tea and scones." Sarah smiled. That was good enough for now. 2 weeks later, Sarah stood before the full Galactic Council assembly. The chamber was enormous, with seating for representatives from 200 different species. Every seat was filled. This was the most important gathering in thousands of years. Sarah wore formal attire that her grandmother had given her. The dress was simple but elegant, made from a fabric that seemed to shimmer with inner light. Around her neck hung her family pendant, the Morrison crest clearly visible. She was not alone. Lord Ashford stood beside her, along with 10 other members of Earth's old line families. Behind them sat a delegation of regular human ambassadors chosen to represent the various nations and cultures of Earth. The chamber fell silent as Council Administrator Theln called the assembly to order. "We gathered today to formally recognize humanity as a precursor species," Theln announced. Her 4 arms gestured gracefully, "and to discuss what this recognition means for all of us." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Sarah could feel the tension in the air. The other species were nervous. She understood why. In a single moment, humanity had gone from being newcomers to having authority over the entire galactic civilization. "Dr. Sarah Morrison will speak first," Theln said. "She represents one of the old line families who carry pure precursor genetics." Sarah stepped forward. Her heart pounded, but her voice remained steady. Lord Ashford had spent 2 weeks preparing her for this moment. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," she began, "I stand before you today as someone who only recently learned the truth about my heritage. 2 weeks ago, I thought I was simply a human researcher. Now I understand that I carry the legacy of the ancient precursors." She paused, looking around the chamber. Hundreds of different eyes watched her. Some showed curiosity, others showed fear. "I understand your concerns," Sarah continued. "Humanity is young. We still struggle with conflicts on our own planet. We have not yet achieved faster-than-light travel through our own efforts. We are, by galactic standards, children." Several delegates nodded. A Corthan warrior in the front row leaned forward with interest. "But being young does not mean being foolish," Sarah said firmly. "Humanity has learned many lessons in our short history. We have made terrible mistakes. We have fought devastating wars. We have harmed our own planet through carelessness. However," she continued, "we have also learned from these mistakes. We have developed concepts of cooperation, diplomacy, and shared responsibility. We understand that power must be balanced with wisdom. That strength must be tempered with compassion." Ambassador Kixtel's crystalline form glowed with warm colors. Sarah took that as a good sign. "The precursor protocols grant humanity certain rights," Sarah said. "Access to archive sites, legal claim to ancient territories, authority over precursor technologies. These rights could be abused. I will not pretend otherwise." The chamber was completely silent now. Everyone listened intently. "But humanity does not wish to abuse these rights," Sarah declared. "We propose a partnership instead of domination. We suggest cooperation instead of control." She activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air above the assembly floor. "Humanity proposes the formation of a joint council," Sarah explained. This council would include representatives from the old line families who understand precursor knowledge. It would also include representatives from other galactic species who have studied and preserved precursor artifacts for millions of years. The images showed a proposed structure, a balanced system where decisions required agreement from multiple parties. Together, we would oversee access to archive sites, Sarah continued. We would make decisions about precursor technologies. We would ensure that ancient knowledge benefits all species, not just humanity. Senator Vex, the Corthan warrior scholar, stood up. A generous proposal, Dr. Morrison, but how can we trust that future generations of humans will honor this agreement? You are young now, idealistic. But what about in 1,000 years? What about in 10,000 years? It was a fair question. Sarah had expected it. Senator Vex raises an important point, Sarah acknowledged. Trust must be built over time. Words alone are not enough. She gestured to the other old line representatives. The families represented here today will serve as guarantors. We will live for thousands of years. We will personally ensure that humanity honors its commitments. We will also advocate for gradual integration, Lord Ashford added, stepping forward. Humanity should not suddenly take control of everything. We need time to learn, time to mature, time to prove ourselves worthy of the trust you place in us. Another delegate stood. She was a Vraxian, her crystalline body showing cautious purple hues. What about the regular humans, the ones without pure precursor genetics? Will they accept being guided by the old line families? Sarah smiled. That is a valid concern. In fact, let me invite Ambassador Chen to address it. A young human woman stepped forward from the regular delegation. Ambassador Li Chen was in her 30s, representing Earth's Pacific nations. She had no connection to the old line families. I speak for the vast majority of humanity, Ambassador Chen said clearly. We only learned about the precursors and the old lines 2 weeks ago. It was a shock. We had many questions and concerns. She looked at Sarah with respect. But we also recognize that the old line families have guided humanity quietly for thousands of years. They never sought power. They never revealed themselves. They helped us from the shadows, asking for nothing in return. That earns trust, Ambassador Chen continued. We do not see them as rulers. We see them as elder family members, wise advisors who can help us navigate this new situation. Furthermore, she added, the old lines make up less than 1% of humanity's population. They cannot force their will on the rest of us. They can only guide and advise. Ultimate decisions about humanity's future will still be made through our democratic processes. Thelen nodded approvingly. A balanced approach, wisdom combined with representation. The Corthan senator stood again. I have another question. The precursor protocols give humanity legal claim to vast territories, worlds that we have colonized and lived on for thousands of years. What will humanity do with these claims? This was the crucial moment. Sarah had discussed this question extensively with her grandmother and the other old lines. Humanity formally renounces any territorial claims based on the precursor protocols, Sarah announced. The chamber erupted in surprised voices. She waited for silence to return. We believe that worlds belong to those who live on them now, Sarah explained. You have built civilizations on these planets. You have lived there for thousands of generations. Those worlds are yours by right of habitation and care. However, Lord Ashford added, we do maintain one condition. Any precursor sites or artifacts on those worlds must be accessible to the joint council we proposed. They are part of our shared galactic heritage and should benefit everyone. Relief swept through the chamber like a wave. Delegates who had been tense now relaxed visibly. Some even smiled. A small, elderly-looking being stood up in the back. Sarah recognized the species as Metherin, known for their philosophical wisdom. A question for the old lines. the Metherin said in a whispery voice. "You have hidden among humanity for thousands of years. You have watched civilizations rise and fall. What have you learned that makes you believe humanity is ready for this responsibility?" Sarah looked at her grandmother, who sat in the observation gallery. Margaret Morrison nodded encouragingly. "We have learned that humanity's greatest strength is not technology or power," Sarah said softly. "It is adaptability. Humans can change. They can learn from mistakes. They can grow. We have seen humans go from small tribes to global civilizations in just a few thousand years," Lord Ashford added. "We have watched them overcome prejudices, end terrible practices, and develop more just societies. The progress is not perfect, but it is real. Most importantly," Sarah continued, "humans understand that they do not have all the answers. They ask questions. They seek wisdom from others. They form friendships across differences. These qualities will serve them well in a galactic community." The Metharan elder sat down, seeming satisfied with the answer. Theln stood, her 4 arms raised for attention. "The Council will now vote on humanity's proposal, the formation of a joint council to oversee precursor heritage, the renunciation of territorial claims while maintaining access to archaeological sites, and the gradual integration of humanity into positions of authority within galactic civilization." "All in favor?" Theln asked. Around the chamber, delegates activated their voting devices. Sarah held her breath. The results appeared on the main display. The vote was not unanimous, but it was overwhelming. 87% in favor. Sarah felt her knees go weak with relief. Lord Ashford steadied her with a gentle hand on her shoulder. "The motion passes," Theln announced. "Welcome humanity to your rightful place among the stars. May we build a better future together." The chamber erupted in applause, not just polite recognition, but genuine enthusiasm. Delegates from different species stood and cheered. Sarah looked up at the observation gallery. Her grandmother was smiling, tears streaming down her weathered face. Sarah realized those were tears of joy. After 52,000 years of waiting and hoping, Margaret Morrison was seeing her adopted species finally accepted. Ambassador Kixtel approached Sarah, his crystalline body glowing with brilliant gold. "Well done, Dr. Morrison. You spoke with wisdom far beyond your years." Sarah laughed. "I am technically 52,000 years old through my grandmother's genetics." Kixtel's colors rippled with amusement. "True enough. Perhaps that wisdom is inherited." As the delegates began to leave, many stopped to speak with Sarah and the other humans, offering congratulations, expressing relief at humanity's reasonable approach, making plans for future cooperation. Sarah realized something important in that moment. This was not an ending. It was a beginning, a new chapter for humanity and for the galaxy. She was ready for it. 3 months had passed since the council vote. Sarah stood in a different place now, one that felt both ancient and new. She was inside the Grand Archive on Kepler Station, the largest repository of precursor knowledge in the galaxy. The archive had been closed to all species for 3 million years. Today it opened for the first time since the precursors had departed. Sarah walked slowly through corridors of crystalline walls that glowed with soft light. Beside her walked Ambassador Kixtel, Senator Vex, and Administrator Theln. Behind them came scholars and scientists from 20 different species, all chosen for the Joint Council. "The archive responds to you," Kixtel observed, his crystalline form reflecting the wall's glow. "It recognizes your genetic signature." Sarah placed her hand on a control panel. The symbols on it were completely foreign, yet somehow she understood them. Knowledge flowed into her mind. Not as memories, but as instinctive understanding. "It is strange," Sarah said softly. I can read this language. I have never seen it before, but I know what it says. Genetic memory, explained Dr. Koth, a Drexian scientist on the council. The precursors encoded certain knowledge directly into their DNA. You inherited it from your family line. The panel activated under Sarah's touch. A doorway opened in the wall, revealing a vast chamber beyond. The group entered together. The room was enormous, stretching far beyond what should have been physically possible within the station. Holographic displays floated everywhere, showing star maps, technical diagrams, and flowing text in the precursor language. Incredible, breathed Senator Vex. The warrior scholar approached the nearest display with reverence. This is the legendary Great Library. Every species in the galaxy has dreamed of accessing this place. Sarah walked to the central platform. A spherical interface hovered there, waiting. She touched it gently. "Welcome, Inheritor," a voice said in perfect English. The sphere pulsed with each word. "I am the Archive's guardian system. I have waited long for your return." "I am not truly a precursor," Sarah said honestly. "I carry their genetics, but I was born human. I grew up on Earth." "You are what you were meant to be," the guardian replied. "The precursors knew their direct descendants would evolve, would change, would become something new while retaining the essential core. You are their hope made manifest." Thelen stepped forward carefully. "Guardian system? Will you share your knowledge with all of us? Not just the inheritors, but all species?" The sphere turned toward Thelen. "That question must be answered by the inheritor. The Archive follows the will of those who carry the genetic key." Everyone looked at Sarah. She felt the weight of their expectations. This was the moment that would define humanity's relationship with the galaxy for generations to come. Sarah thought of her grandmother's words. About being gardeners, not gods. About helping species grow without controlling them. "Yes," Sarah said firmly, "the Archive will share its knowledge with all species, but gradually. Information will be released through the Joint Council. We will ensure that knowledge is used wisely, not weaponized or hoarded." "A wise decision," the Guardian said. "I will interface with the Joint Council's systems. Knowledge will flow at the pace you determine." Relief was visible on every face in the room. Sarah had passed the first true test. Over the following weeks, Sarah settled into her new role. She was now humanity's chief representative on the Joint Council, working alongside representatives from 15 other species. Together, they began the careful work of cataloging archive knowledge and deciding what to release. The process was slow, but rewarding. Sarah found herself learning as much as she taught. The other council members had spent lifetimes studying precursor artifacts. Their insights were invaluable. One evening, Sarah sat in her quarters reviewing reports. A message notification appeared. It was from Earth, from her grandmother. Sarah opened the video call. Her grandmother appeared, sitting in her familiar cottage with a cup of tea. "Hello, dear," Margaret said warmly. "You look tired." Sarah laughed. "I am exhausted, Gran. This job is harder than I imagined." "Of course it is," her grandmother said. "You are building bridges between entire civilizations. That was never going to be easy." "Did you ever do this work?" Sarah asked. "When you were younger?" Her grandmother smiled mysteriously. "I had my own adventures, dear. Perhaps I will tell you about them someday. We have plenty of time now." That was true. Sarah was still adjusting to the concept of living for thousands of years. It made her current exhaustion seem temporary and manageable. "How are things on Earth?" Sarah asked. "Interesting," her grandmother replied. "The revelation about the old lines has caused quite a stir. Some people are fascinated. Others are nervous, but mostly people are adapting. Humans are good at that." "Are you getting questions?" Sarah asked with concern. "Oh, yes," her grandmother chuckled. "The local newspaper wanted an interview. I declined politely. I told them I was just a simple old woman who happened to have unusual genetics. Sarah grinned. Her grandmother would never change, no matter how many thousands of years passed. There is something I wanted to tell you, her grandmother said, her expression becoming serious. More old-line families are revealing themselves, not just on Earth, but throughout the galaxy. Apparently, some precursors hid among other species, too. Really? Sarah sat up straight. Yes. A Corthan general just announced that his family line goes back to the original precursors. A Vraxian scholar made a similar revelation. It seems we were not the only ones who stayed behind. This changed things. It meant the responsibility was more widely shared. Sarah felt both relieved and curious. That actually makes sense, Sarah said thoughtfully. The precursors would have wanted to guide multiple species, not just humanity. Exactly, her grandmother agreed. It seems we are all part of a larger plan, a very patient, very long-term plan. They talked for another hour about small things, family news, Earth gossip, normal grandmother-granddaughter conversation. Sarah treasured these moments. They reminded her that despite everything that had changed, some things remained constant. After the call ended, Sarah returned to her reports, but her mind was elsewhere, thinking about the future. A knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called. Ambassador Kixtel entered, his crystalline form showing soft blue colors of friendship. "Dr. Morrison, I hope I am not disturbing you." "Not at all," Sarah said. "Please sit, though I am not sure that chair is designed for your physiology." Kixtel's colors rippled with amusement. He remained standing. "I came to tell you something. The Council has been discussing humanity's performance over the past 3 months. Sarah's stomach tightened. "And?" "The consensus is extremely positive," Kixtel said, his colors brightening to gold. "You and your delegation have exceeded all expectations. The way you have handled the archive access, the respect you have shown for other cultures, the wisdom in your decisions, it has impressed everyone." Sarah felt a wave of relief. "We are just trying our best." "Your best is quite remarkable," Kixtel said. "Several species have requested Earth's help with their own internal challenges. They want human mediators for disputes, human consultants for development projects, human teachers for their young." "That seems like a lot of responsibility," Sarah said cautiously. "It is," Kixtel agreed. "But it is also a sign of trust. 3 months ago, many species feared humanity. Now they seek your friendship and guidance. That is an extraordinary transformation." After Kixtel left, Sarah walked to her window. Outside, stars filled the darkness of space. Somewhere out there were worlds she had never seen, species she had never met, challenges she could not yet imagine, but she was ready for them. Sarah thought about the blade in Gallery 7 that had started this entire journey, a simple artifact that had revealed an impossible truth. She was part of a legacy that stretched back millions of years, a legacy of builders, teachers, and gardeners who had shaped galactic civilization. But she was also herself. Sarah Morrison, born on Earth, raised in Scotland, shaped by human experiences and human values. She did not need to become something else. She just needed to be the best version of herself. Her door chimed again. This time it was Lord Ashford carrying a small package. "From your grandmother," he said, handing it to her. "She wanted you to have this." Sarah opened the package carefully. Inside was a new pendant. This one showed not just the Morrison crest, but also the symbols of the Joint Council, old and new, combined into something beautiful. A note was attached in her grandmother's handwriting. "You are making us proud, dear, not because of what you are, but because of who you choose to be. With love, Gran." Sarah put on the pendant. It felt right, resting over her heart. She looked at Lord Ashford. "What happens next?" He smiled, his ancient eyes twinkling. "Everything, Sarah. Everything happens next. The galaxy is opening before us, and you, my dear, are perfectly positioned to help guide humanity through it. With help, Sarah said firmly. I cannot do this alone. You will never be alone, Lord Ashford promised. You have your family. You have the other old lines. You have new friends among the stars. And most importantly, you have the support of humanity itself. Sarah nodded. She walked back to her window and looked out at the stars again. Somewhere out there, the original precursors were exploring other dimensions, other realities. They had moved on to their next great adventure. But here, in this dimension, their descendants were beginning a new adventure, not repeating the past, but building something new, something that honored the old while embracing the future. Sarah touched her new pendant and smiled. She was ready. The galaxy was ready. And together they would build something wonderful,